This week in Academy football, it's the first weekend in November, and the Commanders Classic is front and center, with the Commander-in-Chief's trophy on the line. For Air Force, the stakes are simple. A win and the trophy goes to Colorado Springs for the first time for this senior class.
All I'm worried about is trying to win that trophy.
For Army, the Black Knights are not yet ready to relinquish a trophy they've had for 3 of the last 4 years.
The Commander-in-Chief's trophy, that is a source of pride for our program.
And how are these two teams approaching the game?
Execution of aggressive fundamentals.
Emotional matter, and so I expect that to be high, and hopefully the execution will be at a high level too.
For Navy, after an emotional win in Tulsa, the reward for the Midshipmen, taking on the number 8 team in the nation.
It's Notre Dame. It's always a tough challenge, but we have to believe that we can beat them.
And we're just a week away from the Secretary's Cup. What will the matchup between Merchant Marine and Coast Guard look like? We'll have a preview. That's all right here on Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report. Welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Graham Knight. In this, the 50th year for the CIC Trophy, a neutral site contest could determine its fate. Dubbed the Commanders Classic, the game between Army and Air Force is being played at Globe Life Stadium in Arlington, Texas, for the first time. Texas is a hotbed for both military installations and recruiting for the Academy football squads. Both teams are coming off tough losses, tempered by bye weeks as they prepare to square off for the 56th time, just the 4th time at a neutral site. Air Force leads this series 37-17, and these teams have tied once. The Falcons have won the trophy 20 times, but not since 2016. Army is the defending CIC champ and has 9 trophies to its name. An Army win in Texas, and that means the Army-Navy game will determine its fate next month. So what's this game mean? Well, just ask the coaches.
Just the fact that it's a CIC game and that the trophy's at stake. To me, that makes it as important as it can be.
You got one more chance to play a game, a service academy game, right? And, and how much those do take on, I think, a different tone in their own entity.
And now to the game. We start with Air Force. For the Falcons, the stakes couldn't be higher by virtue of their win against Navy. A victory over the Black Knights would secure the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, plus a chance to avenge a hard-fought 10-7 loss to Army to end last season. That game last year was decided in the final 73 seconds, so the Falcons have had a year to think about what might have been. Option offense versus option offense means sustained drives and holding onto the ball, and a history of low-scoring contests.
I think part of it, there aren't as many possessions, when you play a game.
In fact, both Army and Air Force are in the top 3 in the nation in time of possession. And don't think Coach Troy Calhoun and the Falcons didn't notice that Wake Forest hung 70 on Army in their last game.
Clearly, we've looked at that film, from every angle that you can get, and to see maybe what you can pull and then maybe what wouldn't fit.
And Air Force is coming off a tough loss themselves to San Diego State. Their bye week came at a good time.
I think it's good for your team, not only for this game, but I think there's some things that are built in a little bit of camaraderie and interaction that helps you down the road, too.
But make no mistake about it, winning the CIC is motivation enough.
For sure. That's definitely a big one for me. That's something that you come here, you want all 4 of the years you're here. So not getting it once and now getting another shot to go get it is definitely big for us. It's a whole new week, and there's a championship to be won this week.
And the neutral site aspect of things just adds another level of excitement for the teams and the Service Academy football fans.
If there's an event, there's an outing where a good number of our service members are able to go there and you provide them a little bit of joy for one day, makes it even better.
Quarterback Zeke Daniels was injured in the loss to the Aztecs, but Coach Calhoun says all 3 of his signal callers have practiced so far this week. Daniels might have a little more to prove than most. He threw 3 interceptions in last year's game against the Black Knights. And now to Army. Here's Aaron Summers.
In a unique circumstance due to COVID, Army got to host both Commander-in-Chief games last season. This year, they are both on neutral ground. For Coach Monken and the Black Knights, they don't care where the game is played. They just want to keep the CIC trophy at home.
For what it means to us and the 1.3 million people we represent in the United States Army, it's a pretty big deal. So great source of pride. We're glad it's here, and we're going to do everything we can and fight our butts off to keep it here.
It's a championship week, so we're just gearing up to make sure we keep that trophy here. And working hard and really hammering down on the fundamentals and everything that, leads to success in games like these.
While the Black Knights spent their bye week hammering down on those fundamentals, the key for Monken heading into this one is managing emotions.
I think trying to curb the emotion and how that plays into the game is really difficult. And what we've got to try to do is get our guys to execute at a really high level and to be able to go into the game and to continue to do that all the way through.
Air Force leads the nation in running the ball, averaging just over 318 yards per game. Army runs for 312 yards per game, which is good for second.
They're doing a really good job running the ball and stopping the run. We strive to do that as well. If we can defend them against the run, we can stop the run effectively, then I think that helps our chances.
Army currently ranks 7th in the nation against the run, only allowing 92.6 yards per game. Air Force sits at 13th at just under 100. Will be fun to see who gains the upper hand in this one and whether the trophy will change hands when it's over. Graham.
Thanks, Aaron. And don't forget, Behind the Lines will be in Arlington, Texas, and we'll have a complete wrap-up of all the action in next week's show. And now to Navy. The Midshipmen put together 4 quarters of competitive, effective football last week to take down the Tulsa Golden Hurricane 20-17 on the road. Keep in mind, Tulsa was in the American Athletic Conference Championship game last season, losing to Cincinnati. As Diane Roberts reports, beating Tulsa was a real confidence booster.
That's who we are. We never quit.
The Midshipmen got to celebrate big for only the second time this season. A strong second half for the Friday night matchup led the way to victory.
It was a great team win.
It took an entire half to get the whole team on the same page. And late in the first half, Navy was in danger of giving up a big play, like they've done so many times this year. Tulsa's Anthony Watkins ran for a season-long 78-yard dash when Michael McMorris tracked him down like a heat-seeking missile, saving a sure touchdown.
Mikey, to me, the play of the year, and making that tackle, we held him to a field goal.
It really all starts in practice. Every play we emphasize, even if it's just a 3-yard burst, we get to the ball. What we've been emphasizing all year since Coach New's been here, elite eat, and so that effort just kicked in. It was nothing new.
The Mids were just 0-6 on third downs after the first 2 quarters. The score was tied at just 3 at halftime thanks to stellar defensive play.
Our defense played really well in the first half, allowed us to stay in the game.
But at the start of the second half, it seemed like the same old special teams woes would do in the Mids. That's when Watkins broke free again, taking the opening kick of the second half 97 yards to give the Golden Hurricane a 10-3 lead.
We didn't want to give another kickoff return for a touchdown. I mean, that killed us.
But Navy didn't crumble. They answered with a nearly 6-minute, 10-play drive, capped off by fullback James Harris's 1-yard run to tie the game.
I think those long drives where we put them together, we're moving the ball and seeing the progression down the field, it just boosts our confidence.
And then Navy's defense came up big during a 10-play Tulsa drive. When Josh Johnson bobbled a Davis Brin pass in the end zone, freshman safety Raywan Lane came down with it to stop the threat.
I just seen it and I was like, it's got to be me. I got to go get it. And that's how it went.
Quarterback Ty Lavatai and the Mids then marched 80 yards in just over 8 minutes to take a 17-10 lead thanks to a Lavatai score from 1 yard out.
We knew we had to make a change at halftime. We did. We found a scheme that we felt like we could work on.
The second half wasn't without its drama. With less than 5 minutes left and Navy up 20-10, Tulsa went 65 yards in 1 minute to cut the lead to 3. And Navy recovered the ensuing onside kick. Then they ran out the clock for the 20-17 final. One more tidbit for you. Navy had 302 yards of total offense, all on the ground. They did not complete one pass. That's the first time that's happened since November 2018. Graham?
Thanks, Diane. As a reward, the Midshipmen traveled to South Bend this week to take on the 8th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This coming just 2 weeks after playing the 2nd-ranked Cincinnati Bearcats. It's a tough stretch for Navy. And now to Merchant Marine. This past weekend, the Mariners played the Pride in Springfield. You'll recall that Springfield completely blanked Coast Guard 60-zip when they hosted the Bears on October 9th. So the matchup between Merchant Marine and Springfield may be the best indicator of what to expect from the Secretary's Cup when the Mariners face the Bears on the 13th. This past Saturday, the Mariners and the Pride played a much more competitive game, ending in a 28-23 Springfield win. But Merchant Marines may have lost much more than the game.
We're out of the mix for, the playoffs unless we get really lucky, but, it's tough. Tough.
When Merchant Marine entered the stadium in Springfield, they weren't greeted with the best of weather. It was a rainy, wet day, but despite the showers, it only took Springfield 3 minutes and 51 seconds to get on the scoreboard, taking a 7-0 lead on a Patrick Lattis 2-yard run. But the Mariners answered right back, controlling the ball for over 6 minutes on a 14-play, 70-yard drive that was capped off by an Alec Kinnean 1-yard run to tie the score at 7. And before the quarter was over, Merchant Marine rushed for a 24-yard loss and forced a safety, making the score 9-7. But late in the second quarter, Springfield would take the lead 14-9 on a 4-yard run, again by Patrick Lattis. But to start the third quarter, the Mariners answered right back, taking the lead 17-14 by a 71-yard run by Ian Blankenship, plus a 2-yard conversion rush by Brian McGovern. But it was ball control that may have cost Merchant Marines the game and quite possibly the playoffs. The Mariners fumbled the ball 3 times, giving it up twice. Once on a kickoff return and again on a run back. Something that head coach Mike Toop wasn't happy about.
You can't turn the ball over 3 times. You can't let them drive like they did. They made the big plays when they needed to, and we didn't. It's called football.
Ironically, Springfield started the season in non-conference play with 14 fumbles, giving up the ball 9 times. At the start of the season, the Pride were 239th out of 243 teams in lost fumbles. But going into conference play, the Pride clearly have gotten a handle on the football. As for the playoffs, the Mariners have a bye this coming week, and their fate hangs in the balance as other teams in NUMAC face conference opponents. And now to Coast Guard. For the Bears, it was more of the same, but with a twist. After back-to-back games where they would only put up a total of 7 points, Coach C.C. Grant changed signal callers, giving the start to freshman quarterback Joe Armentrout. Armentrout answered the call with a 19-for-37 day and 291 yards passing and a touchdown. But he had 4 turnovers on a soggy field as offensive miscues plagued the Bears again, scoring only once in the loss to MIT 21-7. The Bears actually had more offense than the Engineers, but 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles by Armentrout, plus 2 blocked field goal attempts, helped drop Coast Guard to 2-6 on the season, winless in the NUMAC. The high point of the game came on a 12-yard Armentrout TD pass to quarterback turned wide receiver to Fari Wall in the third quarter. For Coach Grant, he saw what he needed from the freshman from Oceanside, California.
I think he showed us enough in that game to let us know that. Did he make a couple mistakes? Yeah, but you know what? The kid threw for almost 300 yards in a driving rainstorm with wet balls and the whole 9 yards. So he'll be the starter moving forward.
The Bears go on the road for the final time this season to take on Worcester Polytechnic Institute on Saturday. Like Coast Guard, WPI is 2-6 on the year, but has 1 conference win. Still ahead on Behind the Lines, how Air Force and Army match up statistically this season. Hint, they're really evenly matched. And then we'll hear from our insiders from both West Point and Colorado Springs on what to look for in this week's Commanders Classic matchup. Don't go away. Behind the Lines will be right back after this. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. I'm Graham Knight. Despite their records, when you look at the matchup between Army and Air Force, both teams are really similar. Both feature a run-first, triple option style offense. Air Force is actually tops in the nation in rushing, averaging 318 yards per game. Army's just behind with 312 yards. In fact, they're the only 2 teams in the nation to average more than 300 yards a game. The second closest is Ole Miss at 250 yards per contest. And running the ball means chewing up the clock. Army is tops in time of possession, holding the ball an average of 38 minutes a game. The Falcons are right behind in third at 36 minutes a game. Army is also in the top 10 in third down conversions at just over 50% and operate at a 75% rate when it comes to fourth down conversions. And both teams know how to hold on to the ball. Army and Air Force each have only lost 3 fumbles all season, and the Falcons have only thrown 2 picks, while the Black Knights have thrown just 3, both among the fewest in the nation. Needless to say, neither team throws the ball a lot, and thus their passing offenses are ranked among the lowest in football. In fact, Army and Air Force are 2 of the 3 worst in college football, Army averaging just 88 yards per game, while Air Force averages just 78 yards. By the way, Navy comes in dead last in all of college football in passing offense. And when it comes to scoring offense, the Black Knights are averaging nearly 35 points per game, the Falcons just under 30. On defense, the Falcons have shined, giving up an average of only 288 yards per game. That's the 3rd best in FBS. Army's giving up 332 yards a game, which is skewed a bit by the loss to Wake Forest. And both teams boast stout rushing defenses, giving up less than 100 yards per game. Army's 7th and Air Force is 13th. Air Force is also 7th in the nation in scoring defense, allowing less than 17 points per game. Army's in the middle of the pack in that category at just under 28 points per game. And both squads are near the top in allowing the fewest first downs. Army is 3rd, Air Force is 4th. As you can imagine, the service academies tend to be extremely disciplined. That's why they're near the top in fewest penalties. The Black Knights have committed the fewest penalties in college football, just 28 in 7 games. Air Force just 32 in 8 games. As you can see, these 2 teams line up nicely for their Saturday matchup in Arlington, Texas. When we return, insiders Sal Interdonato and Brent Brigham preview the Commanders Classic. Behind the Lines will be right back after this. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. I'm Graham Knight. And now it's time to dig even deeper into the Commanders Classic matchup between Army and Air Force. Just a short while ago, I had a chance to sit down with both Sal Interdonato of Black Knight Nation and Brent Brigham of the Gazette out of Colorado Springs. Here's what they had to say about the upcoming game.
I still assume Hazik Daniels is going to play. From what I've heard, it wasn't a serious hip injury, and he is practicing. But, until we actually see him on the field, we don't know for sure where that status is. But I think the bigger deal is his backup, Warren Bryan. He was limping in that game very heavily near the end against San Diego State. I've heard he's probably questionable at best. So should Hazik Daniels experience anything, that knocks him out, and if Warren Bryan can't go, then you're talking about number 3, who's Zach Larrier, who would be very interesting. He's a Mountain West champion in the 200 meter in track and field. So he has blazing speed. So it could be an interesting situation.
My take is start Jabari Laws in this game. Jabari Laws started 2 years ago against Air Force. With Jabari Laws, that he's got a connection with Isaiah Austin after that Wake Forest game. There's something good happening there. He's a senior. This is a game that he's probably been waiting for most of his career. I mean, he's battled back from 2 ACL injuries to be a factor in this game for this offense. And I think that, Jabari Laws, like I said, what you're going to get in the passing game. The distribution and the option is there with Jabari. But I think Jabari Laws might cause the Air Force for a little bit of a swerve. Might be something that they're not really 100% going to be prepared for. So this is my take on the quarterbacks. So I think that Air Force will come out with what they've done in the last couple of years, looking to stop that fullback. Now it's up to Army's offense and offensive coordinator Brett Davis to mix things up a little bit. I thought he called a really good game against Wake Forest. Let's see if calling a really good game in a service academy game is sometimes you're a little conservative, right? And then maybe you throw in that trick play or that gadget play to surprise. Maybe it's a little play action pass for them. Maybe it's a little wide receiver reverse. Who knows?
But obviously, Air Force can't become Wake Forest overnight. They don't have the same personnel. They're not built the same way. But Air Force does throw it as much as any of the service academies. So I do think you will see them try to exploit that. But again, when you're not talking about the same caliber of athletes, it's a different matchup. But look for Air Force to try everything they can. I think obviously they'll try to establish the run like they always do, but they won't be hesitant to attack an Army secondary that is proven vulnerable. Yeah, I mean, I think you have everything you want with, two teams that are, for the most part, been playing pretty well. And obviously, two of the top rushing teams in the nation, and they've had an off week to get ready for it. So I think you're going to see them as good as you can expect a team to be at this point in the season. Because obviously they're nicked up for, some players are out, but I do think that extra week is really going to factor heavily in both teams at least presenting themselves as well as they can.
As Coach Munkin said earlier in the week, this is a game where the intensity is high. You're going to play hard on every snap. All 11 players on each side are going to play hard on every single snap. What's on the line is the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, right? I mean, if Air Force wins, it's theirs.
But in terms of the game, the quarterback situation, the big playmaker, and then, who can force a turnover, either Air Force or Army. I think that's going to be really, really big in a game where possessions are so valuable. I think right. Unless Air Force doesn't have a quarterback who's played before, and then all bets are off because you don't know. It could be a game-changing move. It could be somebody who struggles. But if all things go the way I think they will, it'll be based on the fullback.
But I really think that this game is going to be decided by, believe it or not, some people will be shocked when I say this, but who gets that big pass play in this game that opens up the offense and changes the field a little bit? I think that's going to be whoever kind of throws the ball more efficiently in this game. I know there's times where Army hasn't thrown the ball at all in these service academy games, but I think in this game, how good Air Force is, how good their defense is against the run, and they can be really good against the pass. I think that, it's going to be who can have that big passing play. And I think if Army can open up its offense just a bit, we'll see a really good game.
All right, Academy football fans, you're now set for the Commanders Classic. Behind the Lines will be right back after this. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. I'm Graham Knight. Well, that's just about going to do it for this week. But remember, Behind the Lines will bring you all of the action from the Commanders Classic. We'll have that for you next week. And we'll also give you one final report as we set up for the Secretary's Cup. Thanks for watching this week. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report.